Today on the forum, we have a chat with Charles Ofori Antipem. I'm actually going to ask him which name he prefers because I've seen him referred to on the BBC as Antipem, and sometimes I've seen him as Ofori. And knowing us in Ghana, Ofori could also be a first name, a middle name, or a surname. Yeah. So I will be moderating here with my colleague Theo Ellis, the founder of Business Links Africa, and we will get to know how science may be reintroduced to in schools in a more practical way. Not only in Africa, as far as we understand, you already this science kit that this young man, 26 years old, has developed, and it's already in the States, in Germany, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Ivory Coast, and I'm sure he'll tell us a whole lot more. We have also got some questions which you can also post on the forum and the YouTube live, or we'll go ahead. We'll go on with the link. Over to you, Charles. Tell us about yourself. Tell us what we should call you. Is it Charles Ofori or Antipem?
I prefer to be called Antipem because actually the meaning of the name is Obia Opema Onte. That means somebody who does not see obstacles. So I like to be called Antipem. So yeah, you can call me Antipem.
We shall call you Antipem. So what's brought you to this state? You're an inventor. Tell us about yourself and your success in the science with the science to date.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a town close to the center of Ghana. It's called Nswatre. It's a really small town. You can't find it on the map. And fortunately for me, my dad was a science teacher. And what that meant was that he was always interested in kind of inspiring us to become scientists, and he'd find ways and means by which he would try to, make us excited about science. And he actually didn't have any materials that he used to teach us the science. I remember the only tool he actually ever had was basically like a bottle, and then there was a funnel, and then he used this bottle and the funnel to a rain cage. So I quite remember, like, whenever it would rain, he would take us outside and we would go and measure the rainfall, and then we would record it. And it was a really simple act, but then that was basically like my first brush with, science and, recording, taking data and stuff like that. And I fell in love with it, And then as time went on, I started reading. I liked to read a lot, so I read as much as I could. I read about Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, all of these really cool guys who were like building the future, creating things and inventing stuff. And I sort of felt like, you know what, maybe it was possible that I could do same. I could create things and I could invent stuff. So starting from a very early age, I was, using milk tins and paper, cardboard, and glue and stuff, and then I would build stuff and I'd make robots, and I'd try to, anything that I could find my hands on to sort of put something together, I would just build stuff, and it was really exciting. But actually, my first major, should I say, creation or invention came when I was somewhere before I completed senior high school, and at the time, there was a lot of fire outbreaks in Ghana. And then I felt like there was this, empathy, you could call it. I felt like, so, we say we're doing science and then we want to, be practical with science and all of that. If we find a solution to a problem that is really affecting people, that would be great. So I decided to try and create something to solve the issue of fire outbreaks. And I found out that, although smoke detectors were somewhat affordable, a lot of people still could not buy them. So I read online, looked for means by which you could detect smoke easily and stuff, and basically found that you could use a laser, really affordable, the cheap laser you can find anywhere. And then you could basically build a very simple circuit with a transistor, basically build a simple NOT gate, and then you could actually use that to detect smoke if you could sort of tune the system properly. So I basically, scrapped that together, and then that was basically my first invention. And ever since then, I've been creating stuff. None of them really got commercialized. Maybe I'll tell you more about those things later. But the science set basically became the first basically thing that I created. I helped create, at least, that became commercial. And it actually goes back to those days. Like I said, my dad was a science teacher, and then I always felt like it could be great if he had the tools and he had things to teach us science with, but then obviously it wasn't going to be possible to build every school a science lab. So the idea came that what if we could shrink a science lab into something like a textbook, to make it as affordable as such, and then basically you could just give every student their own. You could democratize what practical science education was. So it took us about 6 months to build the first prototype, and then we didn't even know how to manufacture it at large scale when we finished building that prototype. But then we sent it out anyway to test it, with some schools and find out what they think about the idea of having, a portable science lab that every student could own. And then we were surprised. Like, we sent it there. It was a really messy prototype. But then the next day, the school started calling us and, can we order 40 of your sets? Can we order 50 of your sets? We know how to manufacture these things at high scale. But it really sort of gave us a sign that this was something that clearly would solve the problem in a very simple way, and that indeed it was actually a problem that people were actively looking for solutions for. So we went full on, and then started finding ways of manufacturing, and then as of now we have close to 25,000 students who have access to our science set in Ghana, in Nigeria, South Africa, in Germany, in the United States, and we also won several awards. So the first award we won was from the Ghana Institute of Engineers, which was the Engineering Excellence Award for creating the science set. And then we also won the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. That's the African Innovation Show, where the science set was selected as one of the top 3 innovations in Africa that could help develop the continent. And then we won the award from the Royal Academy of Engineers. That's the Africa Prize for Engineering Innovation. And then also the African Union, just in September, adjudged the science set as the most innovative education solution in Africa. So far that's what it's been.
Impressive.
It's been exciting so far. We haven't begun scratching the surface yet, honestly. Because those 25,000 students, even if they were only in Ghana, would not make up to about 0.5% of the students in Ghana alone. So we've just begun scratching the surface. We think this is a really big challenge, but also a really big opportunity for us, and also to build a really good company, and also to be able to make great impact.
Good. It sounds really interesting, really, really exciting. You've got some future going there, not only for yourself, but for future generations in terms of their understanding and of science. But you've mentioned, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Germany, United States.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about in the rural areas, for instance? Because that's probably where they've got really no science kits.
Absolutely. So the interesting thing with this problem is that it affects almost everybody. At least if you take a country like Ghana, the primary schools, both the ones in Accra or the ones in Bagabaga or wherever, all actually do not have access to a science lab, especially at the basic school level. So it's actually a problem that affects everybody. But then, of course, like I said, I'm from Isuatre, and then the original sort of should I say, motivation to create this product was to be able to make access to these things for places like that, like my hometown. So we actually designed the product with the rural community in mind. And currently close to, I think, 55% of the schools that have access to the science set are actually in rural communities, like, places like Pakapaka, Yendi. We have schools in Isatre, of course, my hometown. We have schools in Weja. There's some of the deprived areas in the Ga region. So we have a lot of schools in deprived areas who actually have access to the science set, and we constantly make effort to drive adoption in these rural areas. And the interesting thing we are realizing is that, for schools in the in the urban areas, they can easily afford it. So currently, the science set goes for about the equivalent of about $20. And I mean, if you're comparing it to, like how much it will cost you to set up a science lab, right? That's going to cost you like, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And this costs just $20. So it is really, really affordable relatively, but then it's still not affordable for some people, especially people in the rural communities. So we constantly make effort to like partner with organizations, partner with individuals who sort of subsidize the cost of the sets, or sometimes just buy the sets up front and then we donate it to these rural communities. And we are constantly seeing that is growing. So we sell to the private schools, we sell to those who can afford, and those who cannot still yet afford, we work with organizations who provide the funds for us to provide these sets for them.
Okay, thanks for that. It's more exciting every time you open your mouth and give an answer. The next question that came from the forum is saying, what was the inspiration behind the science set for basic schools? I think you've answered that in part, but you may want to expand on, because I heard something about 3D printing and this latest technology and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you want to expand on
absolutely.
that a little bit?
So, this issue of lack of practical science is an age problem, especially for schools in Africa, and actually in lots of developing countries in Asia and other places. And we thought that it was time to look at it from a different perspective. What that means is that, like I said earlier on, I mean, the logical thing to do would be to say, hey, why don't you just simply build a science lab for every school? But that's going to be very expensive. So we decided to try and then look at this problem from a new perspective. And then currently we have 3D printing, and we have laser cutting, we have desktop laser cutters, and all of these really cool tools available that enable you to, sort of do basically medium scale manufacturing very easily, helps you to prototype quickly. So, we've been sort of learning some of these technologies on our own. And then we felt like, what, let's look at this age-old problem from a different perspective. Indeed, if you want to give students, let's say, a light box so that they can do light experiment. There are really big light boxes that are, expensive with all of these lenses and things in there. Then at the same time, you could take the idea of the light box, and then you could strip it down to its basics, and then design things that you can easily 3D print, things that you can easily laser cut, that when you put together will give you the same results as you'd get when you have like a big expensive light box. So that's basically what we did. We took all of these things that you sort of require for a practical science class, and then we stripped them down to the basics, and then redesigned them such that it becomes very easy for you to use tools like laser cutting and 3D printing to easily manufacture these equipment. So that's what we did, and basically the idea that if you make it affordable enough, right, using these kind of manufacturing methods, and you produce it locally, you get to the point where you can make it such that it is something that people can afford, right? And then that way you can really move on to fix the problem, because you've made it not just accessible, but then something that people can actually pay for, once they understand the value inside of it. So that's basically, how we approach the problem.
Okay, cool. Apologies to the guys watching. I think the video has gone a bit weak. I think that's probably the bandwidth on Antipim's side, because he just arrived at the hotel and they are having technical problems on his side. So apologies for the bandwidth, because he's expressing himself and moving, so the picture is not as sharp as it should be. So apologies to those watching, but I think the voice is coming through quite clearly and we can understand exactly what he's saying. So we'll carry on like that. We also noticed that you're addressing the scenario from the basic school scenario. Basic schools, years what, 1 to 5? Age, what I mean, what age groups are you looking at? Because I think you're looking at the younger age groups. What have you in mind for this, for the older age groups? See what we call in probably in Ghana in senior schools.
So currently, the science set is sort of designed to work best in basic school, which is from in Ghana. That's like from class 4 all the way to JHS 3. That's between the ages of 6 and somewhere like 15 years old, I think. And the reason why we decided to begin with this, here's the thing. Right from the beginning, we had plans to do senior high school and university and all of those things, because we know that, of course, if you want to give access to practical science in a portable, affordable way, you should be able to do it for different levels. But then, of course, we didn't have all of the resources that we need to sort of just start and do something for everybody. So the few resources we had, we decided to focus on the basic school. And the reason for this is that the problem is much worse at the basic school level. So at least if you take the secondary schools, they have a science lab, so to speak. It may not be well equipped, but then they have a science lab, most of them, right? But then at the basic school, the science labs do not exist. So there are basically no spaces that you can even put the materials in case you had it, right? In most of these basic schools. So we thought it would be a really good place to start. And also, the idea that if you truly want to get somebody to be interested in science and engineering and all of these things, the best place to actually start is at the basic level. When they're really young and they're really excited about these things, you start from there, and then hopefully, basically catch them young, and then they shall be yours forever, right? So
good foundation.
Exactly. So that was the reason why we decided to start from the basic school. So we definitely have plans. We already have most of the experiments we've designed for, especially senior high school, and then also kits that we've designed for electrical engineering students, for instance, at the university level. So we're hoping that in the not too distant future, as we begin to pump more resources into the company, we can begin to roll out these sets for all of these different levels as well.
Okay. Just a quick question, Charles. It's very interesting what you're currently providing and your inventions as well. What have you, up to date, what have you introduced as an invention to the science set? Is it the one package, or do you have others that you've added to it? What's in a science set, basically?
Okay, sure, definitely. Yeah, I was actually waiting for that question so that I could, get to bring it up and then show you what it is. But basically, the science set has about 45 individual components. I have one here. I don't know if you can see it well.
You have gone offline.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, we can see you now. Yeah.
Oh, good. So this is the science set right here, and it has about 45 individual components inside of it. Let me just see if I can open it up for you to see. Okay, so I don't know if you could see it. So this is the science set.
If you hold it and just still yourself for a second.
Okay, that's fine.
Really steady.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that visible enough? I hope so.
We have a bit of a storm here in UK, so I think it's disturbing the lines at the moment, the system connectivity. But hopefully, with time, would hopefully pick it up. Yeah.
Sure. So the science set has 45 individual components inside of it that allow students to do experiments and activities and some of the core concepts in science and engineering. So it can do activities like light. So we have the beam splitters in there, the rainmakers in there, the mirrors. You can do reflection of light. You have the triangles in there. You have that you can use to build your light box. We have a light stand that you can use to hold light and create a source of light that you can use to study the different properties of light. We have materials in there that students can do electromagnetism with. So they have the iron filings, the metal core, the solenoid. They have all of these things inside there, so they can build themselves electromagnets and then learn the properties, of electromagnetism. We also have materials in there for them to do basic electronics. So they can learn about transistors. They can learn about light dependent resistors. They can build their first digital logic gates using materials from the science there. We also have materials for electricity in itself and simple circuits. So you have the resistors, the capacitors and the LEDs, the light bulbs, all of these things, the buzzers, all of these things inside the science set. Total about 45 components that students can use to perform activities.
So what you're saying really is the science set is geared towards physics more than chemistry or biology?
Yes. Currently, it's more biased towards physics as opposed to biology and then chemistry. And again, the reason for this is that we had to, from the beginning, focus as much as we can, because like I said, you're starting a company, you have limited resources, so you want to be able to make sure the product that you're creating is going to meet a very ready need. So we went out, asked the teachers, we work with the Ghana Association of Science Teachers, and then found out from them what are the materials that the teachers complain that if they had would really, really make their work easier.
Yeah.
So basically, what was the most difficult things for them to teach? And then the top 10 were all physics related, so things like electronics and, these things like electromagnetism, and these things are like, these are concepts that are very difficult for us to teach, and the student just can get it. If you're teaching the digestive system, you can tell the students, when you eat and you chew, and then it's something they can easily relate to. But then when you're talking about things like a transistor, right, and how the transistor works, if the transistor is not available for you to be able to actually do an activity with and then be able to experiment with, it's very difficult for you to really, comprehend what it means, So
a bit like teaching computing without computers.
Exactly, right? So that was the reason why we felt like if we're going to focus really, then it's great that we start from the physics and start from things like electronics and things like electromagnetism and things like light. These things are core fundamentals in science, and then there are things that the teachers found most difficult to teach. And notwithstanding, these things are also very exciting. So when kids build a circuit and then the light bulb comes on, there's a physical light bulb and then also like a mental light bulb. They're like really excited about it. So we thought it was perfect to begin from here, and then sort of as the company grows, we branch into all of the other sides.
Excellent idea. I think that's what led to our second question, which I'm going to put through because this is sort of interrelated. So sorry to just jump in. So how many not so successful products did you develop before having the major breakthrough with this science?
Yeah, there were quite a few of those. So we created something called Flip. So Flip was basically in Ghana, most of the shops, especially shops, on the weekends and also early in the morning, you find their light bulbs are on, and they're just wasting electricity and paying, sort of wasting their money basically on the electric bill. So we thought, if you could design something simple that you could just plug into your socket and then it'll basically make your light bulb automatic. So it's going to turn it on when it's evening and then turn it off when it's daylight. So you get to save electricity. Especially at the time when, there was this doom going on, and then, there was power sharing and stuff. And so the idea, if there's not enough electricity and then we are wasting so much on, these light bulbs that are on during the daytime because the owner is just not there to switch it off. We felt it would be something nice to have. So we created something like that. We try to get, like the right entities to be engaged with it. It didn't really gel. So we pushed it aside. We also created the laser-based smoke detector like that I told you about. So we sort of improved on it and try to make it more efficient, more more affordable, more product-like from the simple product that I developed. And again, that also didn't really gel. So we also put it aside. We also created this water level detector. again, also back to the issue of wastage. Uh, Most households, and when we were back in the university, basically the hostels, you see they switch on the pump for the tank, and then the tank overflows and lots of water being wasted, lots of electricity being wasted. So we designed this really simple water level that detector that used sound to basically detect the level of the water, and it would turn the pump on and off, as and when there was water needed. We sold a few of those ones actually. But then again, it didn't really gel very well because I think there was probably an issue with like I guess we just didn't have that much experience like we did now, and sort of be able to approach the market properly and segment it properly and then market the product well. So we pushed it aside. And then I eventually settled on the science set. So there were a few other.
What that brings me to the third question: what spurred you on? What made you? What keeps you? Going on after going through all these hurdles with these products that weren't gelling or weren't selling.
There was this constant urge to want to be part of those who create the future. And this goes back to back in the days, like I said, when I read about Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla. What I found exciting about them was not only the idea that they created solutions, or the idea that maybe like someone like Thomas Edison make wealth out of the inventions he created, but then the idea that they were part of those who created the future. Like the fact that they basically affected the world. Their existence had meaning, deep meaning for everybody on earth. So that drive that, we should be able to find solutions to a problem and then be part of those who create the future. So that in the future, when somebody says, oh, hey, you see all of these water level detectors that everybody has in their home, this person was the person who created it. There's that drive to want to be part of those who create the future.
Want to be famous.
I mean, I guess you could say that, but like it's more of, even if nobody recognizes you, the idea that like the personal satisfaction that you could sit back and say, you know what, 10 million people are using this thing and I helped create it. That idea that you've impacted the world that much is kind of self-gratification, so to speak, for us, and that was what basically spurred us on and kept us going.
It's quite interesting. I mean, it's remarkable what you've achieved and how far you've got to with this, and especially in Ghana, because we need this sort of technology. We need your people, inventors like yourself. So what's your take on the Ghana education system, and how do you think it can be improved? Through all the
definitely. Back when I was in school, I was very notorious for fighting with my teachers a lot and basically chastising the education system. And I got into a lot of trouble back in those days. But the fundamentals of education, I think we need to be able to understand what it means to educate. And my definition for education has always been basically a means by which, like a group of people can understand their environment and then be able to resolve their past.
Yeah.
And be able to equip themselves to create the future. That for me is what education is. So with this in mind, I think that there's a lot, that needs to change, in our education system, because for one, it's not really centered in around our environment and understanding it as it is, and how we go about teaching. Teaching should be about discovery. Students should be made to discover knowledge within their environment, so that it's not like there's, you come home into your environment and it's a different world, and then you go to school and then it's also a different world where you memorize Aquila or you memorize something in the textbook, some piece of knowledge that was, let's say, created by someone in UK or someone in Europe or someone in the US. But then if we created a system, our curriculum around our environment, whereby when students are learning, they learn using things within their environment so they can understand the fundamentals of the environment. And this cuts across science and math and social studies, citizenship, whatever it is that you're studying. if it's centered around their environment, we basically create our own knowledge. That would be one of the major things that I think we should do. And more so, I also think that we should be able to make education not just about rankings, the idea that it's about sieving people, but rather create a system that allows you to discover what every single person can do, and then orients them in a direction so that they can become the best at what it is that they can do. In a sum, let me say this. I think it's a problem, but I also think it's a big opportunity, because here's the thing. Personally, I feel like, just like the science set demonstrates, the fact that we have a problem with the education system, such a massive problem, means that we can really rethink what it means to educate. We can change the fundamentals of education, and I think we should be daring enough to try that, to basically reform education in its entirety. I think we should be leading the education innovation. Because the system is so bad that we need to overhaul it. And then that means that we get to think within the 21st century and think what is needed now, and then how can we create an education system that can best fit, what this definition of education is. That, I think it's a lot.
You earlier on mentioned that you were working with the education, some of the education departments or systems in Ghana. Is Dex Technology, I think, is the name of your business?
Yeah, that's the name.
How did you come about with that name?
So there's Dexter's Lab, which is basically a cartoon of a young scientist, really. And my co-founder and I used to love it when we were kids. So we're like, why not call it that? But then also, dexterity means doing stuff with your hand, and that's something we both love doing, and that's also something that we hope the science set which was our first major product, will sort of inspire more students who want to work with their hands and think with their hands. So it fit perfectly. So we decided, we're going to call it Dex.
Excellent. And are you, being supported directly or indirectly by the government of Ghana, or associated with them in any, any of what you're doing?
So directly, there's not any support. So they've been facilitating things, for instance, but in terms of like direct support, we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there yet.
And is Ghana one of your major countries that you're currently supplying to, or?
So interestingly enough, the Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, is actually the first country that the government has actually made an order for science sets. So like the government just recently ordered some science sets for us to supply them to begin some testing in some of their their schools. So far as governments are concerned, so to speak, I think the Republic of Congo will actually be our first direct sort of business, so to speak, with the government. But besides that, Ghana is the major place where we've actually sold most of the sets, basically to private schools. And then we also have, countries like Nigeria and South Africa, the US, and then Germany. We sold a few sets also in places like France, in places like the Netherlands, because we sold the sets online, so people order the sets from all over the world. So we have sets scattered all around the place. But then actually, since we started, we've received calls from several countries. More than 25 of them have sent us messages and calls when they see our videos on BBC and CNN. People from India, the Philippines, Brazil, places all over the world, they've sent us messages that, hey, this tool can help us just as much as it's helping these countries in Africa. And I think that's really exciting.
Oh, that's interesting. Over to you, Al. Yeah.
You said earlier you were the teachers, and as you're saying, around the world, you're getting calls from schools and stuff like that. But in Ghana, you said they're facilitating. I was just wondering whether there's any proposal to integrate it into the curriculum in terms of what is actually contained within the more importantly the physics set, so that it aligns with the what is actually being taught, so to speak. Is there anything like that going on?
So actually, right from the beginning, when we were developing the set, we worked very closely with the Curriculum Development Directorate, with the Ghana Association of Science Teachers. So actually, currently, everything in the science set fits science curricula across several countries, especially within West Africa. Okay. So it's actually very directly linked with the syllabus already. Okay. But, so far as the ministry is concerned, like I said, we've been engaging them. Recently, we've made very good progress because recently the minister himself sort of directly got a chance to interact with us and in the set, and he was really impressed. And because of that, he's sort of taking notice, and he's taking some good actions. We're basically just waiting for them to materialize, hopefully, in the not too distant future. But we're making good progress with them. We've written several proposals to them already. We've had the Ghana Science Education Unit actually use our science to train teachers. And they've recommended same to the Ghana Education Service to actually adapt the science set into schools. We've had the Curriculum Development Directorate review the set, and then give it a thumbs up and actually recommend it again to GES to adapt it into schools, because it fits the curriculum perfectly, and it really helps the teaching and learning of science a lot. Okay. So we're making progress. I hope we get there soon.
So I mean, the question then I would ask is, should they take this on from a ministry point of view, Ghana Education Service, and integrate it as part of their curriculum? Do you have the means to produce enough?
So that was one of the interesting things that came up. So I remember when we met the minister, he was like, "Okay, I want 600,000 sets. Are you going to be able to produce it, right?" And it was kind of like, he said it jokingly, but it is definitely a case that we need to be able to scale up. When we started in the beginning, we were able to make like 40 sets in a month. Today we can comfortably make 2,000 plus sets every month, and we've constantly seen that we're able to rise up to the demand. So up until now, we've been running a very lean system. What that means is that when we know the systems, we know exactly how many people we need, how much time it takes us to make this and that and that. So sometimes we even get like casual workers, they come in, and then if we have a big order that we need to supply within a short time, we know exactly that if we get 20 more people, we can raise our capacity from 1,000 to 5,000, and then we can sort of like rise up to the demand. So at least we understand our system, and I think that's what's good. What that means is that if, as and when something like that happens, with the right capital, we know exactly what we need to do to be able to get ourselves to that position where we can provide 600,000 sets in the space of like a year or 2 years quite easily. So I think we will be able to rise to the occasion as and when.
Riding on that question, are you saying you produce all these things locally in Ghana?
So currently, the entire production process is done in Ghana. We still import some raw materials from outside the country. We bring stuff from Nigeria, we bring stuff from China. But 70% of the raw materials are also locally sourced in Ghana. And then what we did also was that we realized that it wouldn't make sense to sort of basically make everything in-house. Like, for instance, if you take the packaging of the sets, it's like this very nice and durable like leather material that sort of like is made into a bag. We got some guys who are already making like big bags or like ladies' handbags and stuff. We trained them how to be able to make this kind of bag, and how to be able to sort of adapt like a smart sort of like assembly line type manufacturing process that will enable them make these things for us for really cheap. And then after the training, we basically let them go on their own so that they can actually make these things for us and also make it for other people. So sort of like develop a local sort of supply chain, so that it's not just creating a product that will help education, or just even employing people, but also empowering people, building their capacities of the local industry so that they can sort of basically rise up. So as of now, we have different local entities that we outsource some of the parts of the sets to, that we've trained, and then they make the sets for us, and then some of the parts we laser cut them, 3D print them in our in-house, and then we put everything together.
Excellent. I mean, luckily we've got, I think, a very clear line at the moment. So if you can open the science sets.
Yeah,
okay, absolutely.
Yeah, because it looks like your bandwidth has improved.
I guess so. So this is the set. So inside here you can see all the electronic components, for instance. So over here you have your manual, you have a battery holder, you have some batteries, you have your electronic components all lined up here. Inside here you have your light components. So you have like a separate box in here where there are a bunch of light components that. So you take the component in here, and then you can basically build like a simple light box. You have your mirror here. You have your your like triangle set, so you can make a simple light system. You have your light stand here that you can use to create your source of light and steady light in different ways. So the electronic components look something like this. I don't know if it's clear enough. But you have the components, and then you have basically kind of like a.
So you basically got a simple PCB with a printed circuit board with a few components on it. Okay.
Exactly, that's what it is. So you can have.
So those green little things that are in most electronic components, you've just cut them down to size and put some components on them so that it's more durable. Okay,
exactly.
Good idea.
And the idea is also that besides making it durable, you make it much easier to connect to these components.
Correct.
So up until this time, you'd have to sort of wind some wire and find some solid tape to hold some stuff. But then now you can very easily just connect you have your wires, and you can just basically plug them into it, and then there you go, right? So
so also there's a safety aspect there that you've covered, because you don't have to do soldering and all this kind of stuff. So it makes it really easy for basics.
Absolutely. And then interesting enough, so of course when we're designing the set, we didn't think of it so much that it would have so much appeal outside of Ghana, especially in places like Europe and in the US and stuff like that. But then we realized that if you use something like a breadboard, for instance, which is something that you could also use to build these circuits and stuff. Besides the fact that you need the components to be discrete, which means there's a lower quality of the components, there's a learning curve for the breadboard also. What that means that you have to understand how the breadboard works before you can then use it to build a circuit or something. But we've stripped it down to this point where you can now have the discrete components, have a bunch of wires, get your battery, and then you can easily, just as you see it in a textbook, build your first circuit without having to have to learn how something else worked before you. So it sort of makes it very, very easy. So we realized that even outside there, places like the US where they have these labs and then they have all of these things, it is much easier when somebody has never built a circuit before
to get the concept across. Yeah, exactly. So you can easily get the concept across without having to explain. In order to walk on water, you have to be able to be lighter than the water.
Exactly. So that's basically it, and that's why it's such an effective tool, and it's not just in Ghana but also outside of the country as well.
I mean, a quick question, which is question 6, which is slightly outside of probably your comfort zone. It's from one of our members who says, in a presentation dubbed Facing Forward, Schooling for Learning in Africa, the World Bank Director, Dr. Louis Benveniste, noted that although Ghana has made some modest gains in keeping children in school, some children are still out of school. What are your thoughts about this observation by Dr. Louis, and what measures should we be taking to make sure the drop-off rate is lowered? for school children?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a very interesting question. And yes, the issue of dropouts is definitely something that we should be worried about. And I think that one of the fundamental things is this. Most of these students that actually drop out, I don't think it's so much so to do with things like, let's say, oh, we don't have money to send you to school or this, because when students, should I say, perform, right? Somehow people find the money to put them in school and keep them in school. But then because the system is structured such that it sieves the students. So if you're sieving the students, you're obviously bound to have a bunch of them not making the cut, and then they're going to end up at the bottom. And then when it gets to the point where the student feels himself that, oh, you know what, this thing is not working for me. And then the parents also feels like, you know what, this my kid is really not getting anywhere with this schooling system. There's no incentive for them to even spend on the student if they have to. And then for the students also, it's not that exciting anymore. They rather go out on the street and do something and maybe earn some money. So onto the point where we can actually create an education system that does not basically segregate, that just sees people and say, oh, you are good and you are bad. I'd rather say you are good at that and you are good at that. And so we're going to work with you here because this is where you fit perfectly. And we're going to work with you here because this is where you fit perfectly. And then we develop all of our skills, and then collectively we can all develop together. Until we get to that point, we're going to continue to have this issue of school dropouts, I believe.
Okay. Have we lost you there, Charles? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, he's still there. It was your system sound that was messing up you. And there was another question for the forum, which I think you've actually answered, which says, how many science sets are you building and how many pupils are you reaching? I think you already said you're reaching about 25,000. So I think we can skip that question and then go in with the one that leads on from it, which says, with that in mind, in terms of how many pupils you're reaching, what do you need to help grow as a company, as an educator, and possibly making education policy makers in Ghana? What do you need to help you achieve your vision, achieve your aim?
Absolutely. That's a great question as well. So in regards to the case of us growing as a company, something interesting happened right from the beginning of building this company. So there was a lot of people telling us, you should write for this grant and then look for this money somewhere, find this investment from this place and grow the company. But then we decided to do something very different. What we did was that we said, you know what, if you want to help us, buy some science sets. So when an organization approached us and said that, okay, we want to help you, we're like, okay, good. You do anything regarding education? They were like, yes. We're like, okay, good. Order some science sets. They ordered 600 science sets. They paid us some of the money upfront. And through the process, okay, we gained experience, we gained exposure, and we learned a lot of things. And then, of course, we were also able to get traction. So one of the major ways that we can continue to grow this company is continue to drive for not just, of course, the sales that we're making to private schools and parents, but that we drive to get the diaspora and then the companies. We just recently partnered with MTN. They bought about 2,000 science sets as a pilot project for schools across the country. So to continue to drive some of these things, because really, if anybody wants to support us, the best way to do it would be to say, hey, here's some funds. Why don't you produce 10,000 sets for schools in this place? And then we get the finances. It helps us grow as a company, and it also helps us gain experience, and at the same time helps us make the impact that we want. Right. So that's one of the major ways that we can continue to get support to build this company. And also, one of the things that we need is sort of like advice in terms of technical advice and in terms of the manufacturing. Because as we continue to grow, it would be good for us to be able to have, mentorship from, entities that have, engaged in, mass manufacturing, work with some of these big companies and understand supply chain and how to manage, manufacturing. I think that would really help us, because the science set is even not just the only product that we intend to do, but we have other products in mind that will require, some good manufacturing. So getting sort of like a mentorship in terms of manufacturing would really, really, really help a lot. In regards to, basically eventually becoming sort of playing a part in education policy, we're basically ready. So like, for instance, I'm here in the UK on invitation from the Royal Academy of Engineers to basically educate, other innovators from across Africa who they are supporting, right? We have a bit of experience so far. We've worked with teachers, we've worked with schools, we've done all of these things. And basically, we think that if the current policymakers see value in what we have so far, and then they are willing to engage us, we are ready to serve. And we believe that even if we don't have so much exposure in regards to, policy development, it is when we begin to, get on these join these entities that we can gain the experience, so that as we share the little that we've gathered so far, we can build more experiences and then continue to be able to sort of develop to become very, very experienced policymakers and things like that. So we are basically ready to serve as and when, value will be seen in what we've already done, and we're called upon.
Excellent.
Hey. Excellent.
Considering general science includes physics, chemistry, and biology, what subject areas can pupils learn using the science sets? I know you spoke about it being mainly physics. Do you envisage any other areas that they can use the current science set books, or you would have to wait for the next phase?
So we do have, like I said, a number of things in the pipeline that we are like working on. We have a microscope. We have a microscope that costs as little as $2 that we are working on. We have augmented reality for biology. We have a lot of really interesting stuff that we're doing. But currently, even the science as it is now does not only do physics, but then critical thinking, problem solving, mathematics, because most of the activities that the students do requires them to measure stuff, requires them to record stuff. So they do some good math there. And then, like I said, also the issue of problem solving. We're beginning to see that students are getting really excited once we give them access to these tools. I don't know if you've seen the BBC video, but there's a school called Brikuzu where there's a young girl who lives in an uncompleted building. So this girl, she learns about the science. So the Australian embassy bought some science set, and then we donated these science set to the school. And then this young girl gets the science set. She begins to learn with it, and then she realized that she could use the knowledge that she has from the science set to solve her problem that she has in the house. So she goes on, gets some recycled cardboard, and then she makes a square out of it. And then on each side of the square, she puts some light bulbs, and then she has some wires and then some batteries and things. And then when she turns this box on, the box is illuminated all around. And then whereas previously she used to go to her friend's house to learn, now 4 of her friends come to her house and then sit around her box, and then they learn together and they collaborate on their homework. Right? Nice one. This was like when we realized this story, when we found out, like it was so amazing for us, because we saw that education have come full circle. And this is what we've been preaching for. This is what we've been aiming to do. When education comes full circle, it's when somebody learns something, they can say that, oh, okay, I have some knowledge, and I'm empowered and confident enough that I can use this knowledge, take a problem that I'm facing, and then solve this problem using the education I'm getting. And then that's one of the interesting things about the set. It's not just about practical science, but it's about empowering the students, making them confident, building their problem-solving capacity, so that these students can go on to become innovators, to become creators of the technologies of tomorrow. So whereas the set itself covers basic fundamental concepts now, it empowers the students enough to become problem solvers, which they can then, of course, carry on as they continue to advance in the things that they are learning.
Okay. Is that, out of curiosity, is that the article written by Thomason Ford
Yes,
on the 11th of September, 2018?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll put that link on the YouTube link so that everybody can have a
those
quick
are the
look
girls
at it.
there,
Okay.
in the picture.
Yeah. So that's the 4 children around the light box. So that was a spin-off of your experiment, right?
Absolutely, yes. Like the kids learned with it, and then they basically took the components necessary and then they created their own solution for their problem, which is really beautiful.
Excellent.
Very innovative, and it's good for critical thinking as well. And
exactly. So just think about it. Imagine that every single student on the continent has this experience. Just think about it. If they have access to these tools and then they're experimenting with it and trying things out and engaging in activities like this, just imagine, what the future would hold. If every student had a similar experience.
Okay. And just because we couldn't see your kits properly, probably because of the link, what I'm going to do is, here is a picture of the science kit. I think it's clearer here than what you were showing. I'm presuming this is the same science kit?
Yes, the same things. It has the same components inside it.
This is the one on the BBC
we've changed
website.
the packaging a little bit to make it more, like more durable and all of that. But it's the same thing.
Okay, excellent.
What's that red squarish or rectangular thing?
It's a battery.
That's the battery. So that's in the middle, and then it powers everything inside the set.
Oh, very
so
good.
It's good to go. So the moment you get the set into the classroom, you don't need anything. We even have like worksheets that come in the set that has different like colors for different sides. So you can do light experiments on the white side and build your circuits on the dark side so that you can see the components clearly. So it's like the idea is a lab in a box. So you get it, and you don't need to basically get anything else. You can just right from that beginning continue to begin to perform experiments on the go.
Excellent.
Well thought out. Very well thought out.
What's been the most exciting period of since the conception of this science set that you've introduced or innovated?
I mean, it's been super exciting. I mean, all of the awards that we've won, the BBC, CNN, DWTV, like all of these things, they've been really, really exciting. But we again getting to meet world leaders, getting to meet like presidents and chancellors and all of these people. It's been amazing. But the most amazing thing for us is just, for instance, the story I just told you. And this is not just this is not like a single case. We have several of these things happening all around where the students are taking the sets and then they are creating stuff. Where one student created a doorbell, for a house. And then like once you open the door, it closes the connection, and then the buzzer starts making some noise, and that sort of thing where the students are actually they are beginning to to prove that point that education can come full circle when you put tools like the science set into the hands of students. That when they begin to not just learn and think with just their heads, but then with their hands as well, they gain so much confidence and then they become problem solvers. It's been amazing seeing that. The teachers have also been fantastic. Like, I remember one teacher said that he has never seen that many smiles in a science class before. When he got access to the science set, that getting to hear some of these things, like it really, really, really makes us like feel like we've created something that could really impact a lot of lives, and it drives us, it keeps us going, and sort of we just hope that we're able to succeed with the support of basically everybody that we can get to be able to make this dream a reality and then put as many sciences on as many desks as we can.
That brings into question the next what we call. You're saying the teachers were so happy, or some of the teachers are so happy because of the amount of smiles that are on the children's faces. But Dr. Benvista, Luis Benvista, which we mentioned earlier, there was a question on him, also noted that teacher absenteeism has been identified as a major challenge to educational outcomes. I think what the quote is, it is sad to know that about half the children who are in school are not being taught because of teacher absenteeism and idleness on part of the teacher during productive hours, he said. Is this, in your opinion, I mean, you're not an expert in the area, but I mean, from your observations with your interactions with schools, etc., I mean, what is your opinion on it, and how do you think it could be avoided?
Absolutely. Again, this is also a problem that definitely requires some attention. And one of the things that, I mean, from my perspective, right, most of these things can be very easily solved with technology. Like I said, we are not experts in education, data collection, and all of these things, but we know our technology and we figure out how to do stuff with it, right? And this is actually something we've actually already thought of, and that is one, to be able to build the confidence of the teacher, and then to be able to monitor the teacher. So what it is that with very simple technology. So for instance, you have a very simple, like really affordable like thumbprint system. Like nowadays, they're like on the ground affordable systems that you can very easily integrate and program that we work with. You have one that is at the door. A teacher puts a thumbprint and then enters the classroom, right? And then whilst you're in the classroom, there's a very simple system to be able to monitor that they are actually in the classroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very simple systems that require no internet. They require none of these things. It can be such that a supervisor comes once in a month and then basically picks the data off it, and then they can very clearly map and see which teacher was in which class at what time, how much time did they spend there. Very easily monitor these things. You can begin to sort of like make it basically much more difficult for the teachers to say, oh, hey, nobody's going to see that I didn't go to class, so I'm just not going to go. No, so that's one of the things that we can do. And as a company also, that is one of the things that we want to do. The science set is not the only idea that we have. As we continue to get investment, as we continue to grow as a company, we have all of these things that we've prototyped, that we've tried, that we've worked with before, that we intend to be able to deploy to enable us to use technology to improve education on all of these different sectors, like including things like teacher absenteeism, where you can now monitor that the teacher is actually in the class room, and then be able to sort of at least make it a bit more difficult for the teacher to just skip the class.
So is the teacher absenteeism a real issue at the moment in Ghana?
It is an issue. It is an issue. It's definitely an issue, especially in the rural communities. It's a big issue in the rural communities.
Why are they being absent?
So there are no proper monitoring systems.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, right, there are no proper monitoring systems, right? So if I'm a teacher, right, I mean, and then the circuit supervisor visits my school once every 3 months, for instance, and then when he comes, basically the only thing he has to prove that I was actually in the class is a register that I signed. So I could basically sign that thing, like sign 1,000 of them and then just leave them there and then never step foot in the classroom, right?
But doesn't the children's school results show that either you're a rubbish teacher or the students are not the best? I mean,
absolutely.
There's some indications otherwise that you don't have to be there. The circuit guy hasn't to be there every day.
Exactly. But I think when the teacher feels like, you know what, I'm not going to be penalized if I don't go to class today or tomorrow, and nobody's even going to find out anyway. The lazy ones amongst them, at least, right, have incentive to do that, because after all, if they do not go, nothing's actually going to happen to them. And then I think that one of the things that is also fundamental to this problem is the way we select our teachers in our country. So for most people, becoming a teacher is like the result when you're not able to become an engineer or become a doctor or become someone successful, so to speak. Like, okay, let's go to teacher training because we didn't get a chance to go to university. So most of the people who are going into teaching really don't want to teach. They just want to have a living and get paid and, just do something. They do not have the passion to become teachers, right? Okay. So until we begin to, I guess, rethink how we select teachers, You know, in places like Finland, we've read that, you know, you need the highest level of qualification. You need to, like, you know, attend interviews. They need to be able to ascertain that you really have the desire to become a teacher and then the qualities to become a teacher before they let you stand in front of the classrooms, right? But then here we are, that the cutoff point for you to become a dentist, right, is, you know, 9. You need to have, you know, a single number. You get 9 and 7, and to become a teacher, you can do that whether you get 24 or 30, and nobody's going to interview you. You basically just do whatever you want. So it's definitely, for me, one of the things that we can also look at, besides having effective monitoring systems that can make it more difficult for the teachers. We need to rethink how we select the teachers in the first place. So that if the teacher is
committed, something that you should, sorry, I interrupted. I said this is something that you should be discussing with the Ghana Education Service or the education of any country. Never mind the direct ministry, to see how they can integrate the whole process of better teaching and better, shall we say, delivery of lessons to teachers, because to children. Because honestly, yes, you might have the fingerprint thing there, you might have the other thing there, but it's the desire of the teacher to get the message across that is fundamentally going to be the solution to the problem. Because if they want to be there and they want to teach the children, then I think then you've got more than half the battle won. But if they don't want to be there, then I think you always find a way out of what you don't want to do.
Exactly. So that is one of the things that we need to look at.
Question, right? Sorry to interrupt.
No,
I'm just being a bit cautious of the time, because we started a bit late and we don't want to take too much of your time. And we appreciate that you've just landed in from Ghana as well, so you probably need some rest. But how do you reckon we can basically improve our schooling system? Will supervision of teachers, effective monitoring, evaluation of teachers' performance, and adequate financing of basic education be helpful in improving our schools in Ghana? What do you reckon?
So, in fact, when I was seeing these questions, I felt like I felt really, like, I don't know, happy, so to speak, because these are actually things that we've looked at, and these are things that we've intended to develop solutions for. And definitely, if you supervise someone properly, if you enable the person to improve themselves properly, you get the best out of them. And one of the things that we've begun experimenting with is to use mobile technology to enable teachers to do assessment. So we created this simple system that, whether it's a smartphone or a basic phone that can just simply do USSD and stuff like that, teachers can actually sort of self-examine in a confidential way. They can test their skills, they can see the parts where they are lacking, and then they can actually sort of receive tailor instructions and tailor build like knowledge packets that can enable them, you know, better themselves, better explain different concepts to students and things like that. And you know, these things can be very easily deployed. Almost every teacher, I can say, has access to a phone nowadays, and these are some of the things that I believe that we could use to improve the teacher, right? Be able to enable the teacher willingly sort of like understand for themselves how good they are a teacher, right? Because, like I always say, you know, we always examine the students, but then in places like Ghana, seldom do we examine the teachers after they're out of the system, right? So with mobile technology, it becomes very easy for, even if it's not done by a central body, for the teacher to be able to self-examine, to be able to determine that, oh, you know what, maybe I need to be able to change the way I explain things in this way, and then be able to learn different methods of explaining things, and, you know, sort of improve themselves using their mobile phones, basically. And these are technologies that we've experimented on. Our R&D teams are doing really incredible stuff in all of these things, and definitely, I believe that in the not too distant future, if you're able to implement some of these, and of course, technology is not the only solution, right? Like you said, the teacher's commitment, there's the need for policy and things like that. That will sort of make it much easier and then much desirable for the teacher to want to improve themselves. For instance, you can say, okay, fine, if you do a self check, you're able to score this mark, we're going to promote you, or we're going to do something. These things are policy stuff that need to happen to be able to enable to sort of like incentivize the teacher to be able to improve themselves and to be able to do a better job. But on our end, we know that we are building the technology. It's possible. We have the capacity, we have the team, and the infrastructure exists. And we can use things like mobile technology to enable teachers improve themselves, to monitor teachers, and to be able to track progress.
Okay, so basically you're talking about continuous professional development is included in the self-assessment, so that
Absolutely.
you've actually I mean, after you finished and you got your degree as a teacher and you're teaching, you have training days or training times periods for
Absolutely.
teachers to improve themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, using mobile technology, we can actually democratize that process so that any day, anywhere, anytime, a teacher can basically pick up their phone, they can do a self-test. One of the things that we created as a project when we were learning how to use AI and things like that was we created a virtual classroom where the teacher could actually go and then teach these virtual students, which is each of the students is like an AI, so to speak. And then as the teacher teaches these students and sort of gets feedback, and then the students ask him questions, we can learn how the teacher does his teaching. Does he give attention to this student and not that student, and then be able to give sort of like feedback to the teacher to help the teacher improve themselves. So again, like I said, using technology, we can, basically revolutionize what it means for the teacher to do assessments, for the teacher to be able to improve themselves and then continuously monitor and then like sort of track their progress, basically.
Okay.
So currently in the rural areas, is it majority of the rural areas, do they have access to internet services? Only because you mentioned the mobile.
Absolutely. So internet is still something that it's a bit of a luxury still for people. And in most rural areas, even if you have internet, it's not fast enough. So that one of the things that we are constantly doing is that most of the technologies that we're looking to develop are not internet based, right? So for instance, we have like our offline server. So like these things will be available offline, and then data packets can be sent by SMS. Communication can be done by USSD. So you require very, very little connectivity, so that like a basic 2G connection, a basic edge connection, you'll be able to allow you to effectively. So basically, all the processing is sort of done offline, and then the basic data that we get, we can simply forward it via SMS, forward it by USSD, and then sort of crunch that data, make sense out of it, get some feedback, and then again send this feedback, just what is needed, again via SMS, via USSD, and then be able to communicate with teachers. So most of our technology is focused on building things that are solar powered, things that are offline, so that no matter where you are, whether you are in Bimbila or you're in Accra, you can easily use these products.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. Okay. The next question that we have is what we've actually covered, really. It's just to do with, I'll go through it anyway, just in case you have any comments to add to it. It says, which is question 11, education is the process of exposure to superior and quality knowledge, as well as empowering educatees with valid knowledge so that they have critical thinking skills and facilities to make informed, better, and quality decisions, which will add value to the quality of their lives and the lives of others, and in the end, help resolve political, economical, social, and technological national problems. Can you vouch that we're anywhere close to these definition that we've referred to?
So yeah, like I said earlier, definitely there's a lot to do so far as our education system is concerned. We fall short in a lot of ways, and like I said earlier, in those three main parts of understanding the environment, being able to resolve the past and be able to learn from the past, and then be able to equip with the right skills to create the future, right? We need to do a lot of work in that regard. Like for instance, we last year piloted with a school in Kumasi, introducing computer programming, for instance, into their curriculum. And of course, it was interesting that they did not have easily get access to a full-time teacher that they could employ to teach computer programming, because the ICT master was not so much skilled in computer programming. So what we did was that, like again, using mobile technology, we're able to basically have the kids, when they go home, learn programming, and then it can still be accessed, and then the marks they get can still be put onto the curriculum. And
this was in Kumasi? Kumasi is a major town in Ghana.
Yeah. Kumasi is a major town in Ghana.
So if they haven't got teachers in Kumasi, how much more people in the very rural areas?
Yeah, teachers that can teach things like programming, which like 21st century skills, these sort of things that you need to be able to equip people with, to be able to sort of like live in the future and be able to help create the future. It's even in Accra, it's not that easy to find a teacher, somebody who knows how to teach, who can teach you computer programming. It's very difficult to find. It's only some of the really good schools, like SOS, DPS, GIS. These schools have the Rich School and all of these places. These schools have they can afford to get these teachers and then pay them and have them teach their kids things like programming. But then on the wide side, for most of the schools don't have access to these things. So I think there's a lot to be done. And again, I keep coming back to that fact that from our part, we intend to be able to bring about the technology aspects. How can we use technology to help solve these issues? Again, there are different things that need to happen. There's policy, there's the teacher, there's all of these things. But then we believe that technology can help make all of these things easier, right? So our goal is to be able to create technology that's going to help make all of these things easier, to be able to improve education and be able to give students the right skills, the right confidence to be able to be part of tomorrow's creators.
Wow. It seems that the DEX technology is basically very much in need in Ghana. I mean, this leads us to our next question, which is, with the rapid growth of DEX technology, what training is in business development, and what kind of training do you think you and your team will need to achieve your vision for DEX technology?
Absolutely. So we intend to be able to develop lots of other products. We intend to be able to scale up properly as a company, right? But one of the things that we really think that we've gone through the Tony Elumelu, we've gone through the Royal Academy of Engineers, we've gone the American Society, and all of these programs that we went on gave us some good skills with regards to entrepreneurship and building a business and business development and things like that, to the point where we are now mentoring other people on how to develop businesses. But there's definitely still a lot that we need to learn. Again, like I said, when it comes to mass manufacturing and all of these different things that we definitely do need help with in sort of mentoring, being able to understand mass manufacturing. And we definitely also we intend to be able to train our staff. One of the things that we've constantly begin to see is that it's difficult to find the right people to be able to employ and then basically build an A team. So one of the things that we've begun to do is to invest a lot in training the people that we work with, and sort of helping them build their capacities, so that we can be able to create a team that can actually sort of like see most of these projects through. So far, the team is fantastic. They're doing amazing work. And it seems that because everybody in there is so committed, we sort of managed to attract a lot of really talented and really committed people. And we need more of such. We obviously also seek to raise investments. Because of course most of these things are also very capital intensive. Up until this point, we most of the growth we've had has spawned from sales. So we've sold a lot of sets, we've made money from it, we've pumped that money back into the company, we've received grants from the African Union, from the Royal Academy, from the American Society of Engineers, and all of these things have sort of fed into the growth of the company. But to be able to really scale massively in the way that will actually cause the sort of impact that we want, we need, to be able to raise good capital. And like I said before, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface when it comes to the market size in Ghana alone. I'm not to talk about places like Nigeria, not to talk about places like South Africa and India and all of these really like huge markets out there. So it's a big challenge, but like I said earlier on, it's also a really big opportunity for investment. It's also a really big opportunity for us to be able to of course create an impact as well.
For me, in this sense, I'll be a bit selfish and say, look, focus in Ghana, because we need you more in Ghana. We need this business to grow in Ghana. And once you've got a good business model, I'm sure we can then expand further out into the other parts of the world. And due to that, I'll probably spare you, Alf, because you probably need his expertise. He's really, this is his area of expertise, which is one of the areas that he can give you even more ideas on how to expand and add things to your business. So we'll talk about that.
There's one more thing that you're talking about expansion, and Theo is dumped on my shoulders, but just as a side issue, have you sorted out your intellectual property rights and made sure that you've got everything tied down so that
and all that?
Any further development on this, nobody's
Absolutely. So we've done our trademarks, our copyrights.
Okay, good.
And I mean the patent process takes some time. So although we've started it, we have the patent pending stuff, and all of those things are in the system, so to speak. So we are protected in as much as we can up until this point.
So as part of your short-term vision, you intend to launch the first offline AI-powered digital school. Can you elaborate a bit more on that for us to understand what you're trying to do?
Absolutely. So what DEX Technology seeks to do is to be able to build the software and then hardware platform upon which a new education is going to be built upon. And we succeeded in shrinking a science lab, right, into something like a textbook.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, what to do next, right? Okay, let's shrink the entire school and put it into something that you could take and put anywhere, and then you could deliver quality education powered by technology, and basically elevate the teacher to a level of a facilitator, elevating to a level of a supervisor, whereby you let technology do the hard work, the videos, the interactions, the tests, the marking, and all of those things. It's done by technology, and then the teacher basically steps out of the way of the students and allows them to discover knowledge on their own. So basically, the idea of this offline AI-powered school is to create an offline server. It's basically a device with a really huge hard disk inside it that basically can serve like a local network. So you can connect to it with a mobile phone. You can just hook a big ass television to it. You can basically, if there is a community, for instance, where there is no school, but there's no school building or there are no the proper facilities there, instead of say putting up a 6-unit classroom block that was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you had a screen, you have some interactive devices, you could actually create a new school where the students can actually interact with this system. Each student can actually learn different things. Each class can log into it, learn different things, interact with it, repeat things as much as they want, do tests, have the test marks, and all of these really cool stuff. All powered by this technology.
Sounds a bit like Khan Academy kind of thing.
Khan thing, exactly. So basically, think of Khan Academy, but with all the structures of a school inside it, and then brought into an offline experience. Again, powered by AI, so that you can understand what the student is going through, the sort of questions you give the students, the pace at which you feed the students with information, and then be able to sort of tailor-make the education process to each individual student. So that is the idea, to shrink a school into a box, power it up with AI, and basically rethink what the future of education is going to be. A personalized system.
Excellent. Excellent. I think that's a brilliant idea, so long as it can be brought into conception, which hopefully with time.
And you keep the teachers in the loop.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. So like I said, the goal is not to replace the teacher, but to elevate the teacher and then also make the process more efficient. Because honestly, in my perspective, teachers are somewhat as are now in the way of the student, because it's like the teacher now has to go and look for the information and whether or not they find the right one and all of that, and then they have to deliver it to the student, and then each of the students has their own pace at which they learn. So there's all of these things, and I feel like the teacher could be much more productive, so to speak, if he played the supervisory role where the students can search for the knowledge on their own. The students can learn things at their own pace, powered by technology. And the teacher basically supervises, makes sure the students don't go wayward, make sure that the feedback and then the sort of basically how the system is structured is done by the teacher. So I foresee the teachers as the ones who kind of improve such a system. The teachers are the ones who are going to be able to say, you know what, okay, this is what the AI is doing, but then let's add this to it, let's add that to it, let's improve it this way. So the goal is to elevate the teacher.
So what you're saying is that the teacher makes sure they stay on Scylla, rather than you find something exciting and you go off on a tangent and you're not actually learning what it was you're supposed to be being taught.
Exactly.
I mean,
your camera has gone out of focus, by the way.
Yeah. I'm trying to fix it.
Okay. You just tap in the middle of the screen. It should actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm wondering why it decided to just go out of focus.
That makes two of us.
It should be fine now.
It's okay.
It's still out of focus, but we'll survive the last question. I think there's one more question.
Okay.
It seemed the question from the forum was: it seems the science kit gets pupils interested in science. Yeah, we've seen that. Do you see it as encouraging people to develop an interest in maths, physics, and thereby pursuing engineering degrees and doctorate degree, medicine degrees, and whatever other kind of scientific degrees? Absolutely.
So it's definitely interesting, like the story that I mentioned earlier on, and you're beginning to see this over and over again, where the students are getting really excited about the things that they are having access to, and it's building their confidence. So there are the core stuff that you need to teach the students. Of course, they need to understand the concept, they need to understand the theory, and then they practice it. But then there are also very, very important soft skills that are absolutely fundamental to the future. Things like the student being confident enough such that they think that they can actually come up with a solution, right? And these are the sort of things that the science that actually helps the students to build. So besides the fact that they are learning the core concepts, besides the fact that they're doing things like mathematics, they're gaining critical thinking skills, they're gaining problem solving skills, and these things are super, super important. One of the things that we're beginning to see also is that when the students get access to the science set, and then they're building all these experiments, and then they're doing all these really cool stuff, they sort of like transfer that same enthusiasm even onto things that are not treated with the science set. So they may learn these things with a set, but then they will do something else that does not have materials from the science set. But then because they've sort of got into that sort of mood of doing practice, they tend to want to go and look for things within the environment that they can use to perform these experiments, right? So that is the thing with for me, I think technologies that can cause impact, like something like the science set, it's not in itself saying that, okay, this is everything the students will ever need, but then it is something that empowers the students that such that even beyond the science set, the students begin to think of things on their own, right? And then sort of like try to get create their own solutions and create their own materials to do different experiments. And on the side of just the raw data, we began to see that across board, since we started, at least a 15% increase in the number of students who choose to do science in the schools who have the science set. So we're actually seeing that the students get excited about it and they feel more confident that, you know what, maybe I can do science, and science could actually be an exciting thing, right? So we're beginning to see, you know, like the results both, you know, like qualitatively and quantitatively as well.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, it's a very, very good invention. You've got a niche market, I'd say, because it's something that not a lot of people have thought about, and not a lot of people have gotten their businesses, business models into, more or less. In terms of even talking about that, do you see any competitors by any chance?
So there are definitely like different, you know, like science kits out there. What we focus on doing is making something that is very curriculum specific. So you take the science set, put it in almost any school in West Africa, for instance, and it will instantly fit into the curriculum. The things that you can do with the science set are things that the students actually require academically to learn. But at the same time, also, we've managed to make it such that it's open for the students to also do extracurricular stuff. Like I said, you know, these problem solving, critical thinking, and all of these things. The science set also, I can confidently say, is one of the most affordable science kits you can find anywhere. And also one of the most portable you can find anywhere, right? It's something that can easily fit into every student's bag. And these are the things that I think make the science set unique.
Oh, there are several points. I mean, thanks for actually taking that step of faith, so to speak, and reaching out and making these things happen, because people have ideas and not all of them actually come to the fore. So thanks for that. I mean, it gives, in my opinion, it gives Ghana hope. It gives me hope that there's hope for Ghana and for various other places where, you know, science would have never been taught. I mean, I've worked with astronauts on the International Space Station and stuff like that, and my grandfather was a fisherman from West Africa, you know, so yeah. I know where you're coming from. My father always said education was the key, and that's what he was giving us, my father and my mother, bless their souls. But you're also, from your science kit, like you answered in the previous question, it's building up transferable skills. I.e., you see what I'm learning theoretically, I can put into practice, I can see the results. That means everything else I'm learning, I can also put into practice, which is something that is something that it's a knock-on effect, but it's absolutely brilliant that you're giving that hope to the youth of today, the children of today, for an educated future. And again, it also gives them the critical thinking tools to think, well, I did this in physics, maybe there's something, and even if they don't know the answer, they can go look for the answer, because part of the question is not knowing the question to ask, because you don't know whether there's an answer. So if you don't know what question to ask, then you need something, you don't know what question to ask, or you don't know it's available. You know that, well, I did this in, sir, I did, or miss, I did this in physics, and the light box, in chemistry, can I do this? In history, can I do that? And then it all comes to, I mean, it's great that you gave the example of the children that the BBC took the picture of, or you took the picture of, with the feedback with the light box. And it's absolutely excellent that you can actually do that kind of thing. And the children are, it's shown, I mean, with a 15% increase in children uptake in science, that's quantifiable. That's not per chance. So congratulations. Keep up the good work. Please call on us when you need any help, or, I mean, we'll be discussing ways forward and how we can help you help us in terms of educating because, I mean, all of us want to improve our country. on improve the continent, improve the children of today to become better people for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Very much.
We know you've had a hectic flight from Ghana. Late flights, delays. We had to postpone the start of the session. Sorry we put you so much under pressure.
That's okay.
But thanks. So thank you very much for that. And
thank you. And I'd also like to thank you guys. It's definitely great to be able to get to share what we've created with with you guys. And before I go, I'd like to say that here we are. We've been able to create this solution. It's simple enough. It's affordable enough. It's creating impact, measurable impact. The question is just basically how many sets can we put on some desks, right? And it's a very should I say direct problem, right? It's just a question of those who can buy, and then those who can support others, those who support others and enable them get it. And one of the things that we're beginning to see also is that with the set, sometimes in the school it doesn't have to be one student per set. But just with about 10 sets in the school, the entire student population have access to it, because then when they have signs, they bring it, they share it for them. And just like a textbook, the students gather around it, and then they like 2 students per set or 3 students per set, and then they can actually do it. So what that means is that if you can think about it, for as little as $20, you can actually have up to about like in its lifetime, close to like 20 students, right, that are actually going to benefit from something like this. Just imagine, right, the possibility of what all of us can do, right, when it comes to supporting and making these things happen. So definitely, we're excited about the future, and we look forward to getting all the support we can get.
Just a quick question. Let me interrupt you. How many CDs is that? You're talking $20.
Yeah, that is the equivalent. So again, it depends on where the dollar exchange rate is, but it ranges between 80 and 100 cedis.
Okay, I just wanted to get an idea of how much.
Exactly. Sure. So compared to the science lab, that would have cost upwards about $200,000. Which, if you want to also know that in Ghana cedis, that's like
don't go there. Don't go there. So, over to you, Theo.
Compare that with $20, being able to do that, that's like absolutely impactful.
So it's so interesting and so good to have people like you, Charles. We're very proud of you. You're doing
Thank you very much.
Antipim.
Yeah,
Charles.
A great job, and coming up with such a good idea. Actually, something that we should have had years back, but it's time for everything. What I'd like to know is that what are your advice to us about the Ghanaian schooling system or the African schooling system? What advice do you have for us? Because on the forum we have ministers, we have people from various experts from various backgrounds, and we have also people who are listening and watching this video. So what advice would you like to give us, and what would you like to inspire us with?
You see, my dad was a science teacher who had only like a rain gauge that he made from a bottle in the funnel. And here I am, having seen just that, just a funnel and a water bottle. Here I am, I have created a product that the African Union has adjudged the most innovative education solution on the continent. What I'm trying to say is this, that, education is not really, it's not about doing everything for the student. It's not about doing everything for the teacher. It's about focusing on creating experiences. So, like I've said before, that those 3 main points of the environment, the past, and in the future, being able to create experiences where students, for instance, can do very simple, very simple, like say science activities. Students can do like very like basic stuff, once you're able to inspire the student, so much more can happen. Because if you want to do everything for the students, you want to do everything for the teacher, it's just basically impossible to do.
Your screen has turned around.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let me fix that. Is it okay now?
The last few seconds.
I know, right? Is it okay now?
Well, yeah, you've gone into weird ratio, but yeah, we'll live.
That's okay.
You see, this is the problem with science and technology. It doesn't always work.
I know, right? so that is one of the things I think we should look at. It's not about just like doing everything for the students or doing everything for the teacher. I think the focus should be about empowering them, being able to understand that if you, I grew up in instruction. I didn't have Lego. I didn't have anything, right? The only thing I had was a science teacher as a father, a man who was committed, who felt like, hey, I can inspire my son. And then he took a bottle, he took a funnel, and then he was able to inspire me to get here. So if we focus on creating such experiences, simple stuff, but we focus on quality experiences for our students and our teachers, the little things can create knock-on effects that will eventually enable us have, some of the great inventors, some of the, great business people, whatever you can think about. It's all about creating experiences.
Excellent. We had that the last question. I don't know if you were involved or if you knew about it. We heard that Ghana had set up the first satellite. Is it a satellite in Ghana? Did you hear anything about it?
The first satellite.
Was it?
It was CubeSat.
Okay.
It was a CubeSat.
CubeSat.
It was 1 kilogram.
Yeah, I know the CubeSat. Yeah. I had
it was a CubeSat that they sent up.
Yeah. Seen it. Yeah.
Were you involved with it or?
Not directly. I know the student who did it, and we look into how we can collaborate and inspire more students using stuff like that. But I was not directly involved in the project.
It was launched from the International Space Station through the Kibo, the Japanese science lab, which is a bigger science lab, and I've been involved in the European Science Lab Columbus on the International Space Station. So that was one of the things. So our science labs are slightly different, but they effectively do the same thing.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Charles. Won't take any more of your time. Thanks to Business Links, our followers, our members. Thanks to our viewers as well for switching and joining us during the session. It's been fantastic. It's such a good learning curve. We've also been enlightened about what DEX technologies actually do and what they're doing and how they are empowering Africans and schooling system in Africa. Hopefully, if anyone wants to contact Charles, you're always welcome to either email us on bizlinksafrica at gmail.com, or as a member, he'll be with us. So we can always have a chat in terms of business ideas and how we can develop. And investors actually can also contact us if they're interested in being part of this DEX technologies. Thank you, Charles, so much. Thank you, Al, for moderating with me. And we hope that, and thanks to Mr. Stephen Clark as well, working behind the scenes and also coordinating the whole event together. And hopefully we'll see you once again in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much, and bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.